Hello and welcome to our lesson on an introduction to decimals. So like fractional notation, decimal notation is used to denote when you have part of a whole. And numbers that are written in decimal notation, they're called decimal numbers or they're just called decimals. So for instance, 17.758 here, this is an example of a decimal. And this is the whole number part of the decimal. So we have the whole number part. That symbol right there is called the decimal point. That is the decimal point. And then the 758 on the other side of the decimal, that is the decimal part of the number. That is like having the fractional part of the number. Okay, so you have the whole number part, you've got the decimal point, and then you have the decimal part of your decimal number. Now, we have seen in the past the place value chart for whole numbers. The place names and values for the whole number part of our decimal number are the same. Those haven't changed, but now we're going to add on the place names and values for the decimal part. So you see a picture here where the place names and values for the decimal part have been added. So let's take our 17.758 for instance. 17.758 would line up in our place value chart like this, where after all these whole number parts that we've seen before, when we introduce our decimal, then in the decimal part of our place value chart, you kind of see some repetition. And I tried to color code these things for you, but we have our ones place and our decimal point. And the reason I coded those in the same color is because whether you have a whole number like 17 or we put 17 with the decimal point and then nothing after it, 17 is 17.0 with the decimal. So you can kind of think about the decimal point representing the holder for our whole numbers, or the placeholder, the spot for our whole numbers. So I lumped those two together. But after that, we've got tens on this side mapping to tenths on the other side, hundreds on this side mapping to hundredths on the other side, and then thousands and thousandths with the th, 10,000 ten thousandths, right? 100,000 hundred thousandths, and million and millionths, right? So they're all sort of corresponding there, where on this side of it we're just adding a th to it, and what we have is a portion of a whole number, so a fractional part just represented with different notation, this decimal notation. So when we are reading this, we're gonna call this 17. We're going to read the decimal point as the word and then we're going to say 758 thousandths, because that decimal lands in that thousandths place. So that's kind of how you're going to read that, okay? And what it means, let's talk about the meaning of this number. Let me scooch this over a little bit. What this means is if you have 1 in the tens place, so this 1 in the tens place here means we have 1 10. So 1 times 10 plus this 7 in the ones place means we have 7 ones. Plus, we've got our decimal point, and then we have 7 in the tenths place. That means we have 7 tenths. Plus, the 5 that's in the hundredths place means we have, oops, that's my highlighter. We have 5 100ths, 5 hundredths, and then lastly this 8 in the thousandths place means we have 8 thousandths. So if I was to multiply all those pieces and add them together, we would end up with 17 and 758 thousandths. Okay, so this is how you read it, and this is what it means. So this is red, and it means this right here. Okay, so let's just practice a little more with the writing or reading of a decimal in words. When we're going to write this in particular, we want to make sure we write the whole number part as we would have before. So put commas in the wording where we would have put commas in the number. We hyphenate the 2-digit numbers, so that part hasn't changed. And then we're going to write and I'm like, what? Like, we're going to write and for the decimal point, and then we're going to write the decimal part the same way we would write the whole number part, except after we write it, it's going to be followed by the place value of the last digit. Okay, so let's try this out. For instance, 1.3. So the whole number part here is 1. So if I was going to write this out, well, let's do a shorthand version of it first. So 1 and 3/10 is what we're looking at. 1.3 is 1 as a whole number part. The decimal is and then 3 is in the tenths place of the decimal, so 1 and 3/10. But technically, if we write this out in words, we're going to make 1 and 3/10 all written out like this. Okay? Similarly here, this would be 97 as a whole number part, decimal parts, and we have 28, and it lands in the, not tenths, but in the hundredths place. So it's 97 and 28 hundredths. And then to go full version here, we're going to say 97. So 97, 2-digit number, gets hyphenated. And 28, again, 2-digit number. So we're going to say 28 gets hyphenated, and then it's 28 in the hundredths place, so it's going to be 28 hundredths. So that would be the formal version of that written out in words. Okay, or here, if we're reading this, we're going to say 302 and 105 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So when we're reading it, again, 302 and 105 thousandths. So writing it out, we would say 302 and 105 thousand. Oh, I said thousandths over here, guys. Goodness, that's thousandths with a TH. Thousandths. Okay. Should I make that mistake over here? Nope. All right. And then one more. If we were reading this, we would say 72 and 1085 in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths place. So that's how we're going to read it. We're going to say 72 and 1085 10 thousandths. And then if we're going to write this out in words, 72, 2-digit number, gets hyphenated, and 1085. So 1000, and we'd put a comma after the 1,000, right? So 1085 10 thousandths. If we wrote this all out in words, I know it's super fun. Okay, so we've practiced reading and writing a few. Let's go in reverse. Can we go in reverse? So if we have 48 and 26 hundredths, 48 and 26 hundredths, let's go here. 48 translates to 48 and translates to our decimal. 26 hundredths means we're going to have 26 in the hundredths place of the decimal, so 2 numbers after the decimal. So 26 hundredths is there. If we have 6 and decimal, 95 thousandths, so 95 thousandths means tenths, hundredths. We have to get out to the third decimal, so if we have 95 of those, that means we have a 0 in the tenths place there. So 95 thousandths looks like that. If we have 396 hundredths, the 300, obviously 300, and is our decimal. 96 hundredths is 0.96. And then let's see, 39 and decimal, 42 thousandths. So 42 thousandths, again, in the thousands place means we need 3 numbers after the decimal. So I'm going to have to put a 0 in there in between the 42 and the decimal to make sure that that happens. Okay? So 39 and 42 thousandths. Looks like that. All right, not so bad, hopefully. There are some situations here where we should be able to also write fractions as decimals. And I don't think that's what I meant to write there. I think I meant to put that in reverse. I'm looking at this going, we're not writing fractions. This is, I have this backwards. Writing decimals as fractions. Goodness. Okay, decimals as fractions. What we're going to do is we're going to write the whole number part as the whole number, and the decimal part becomes a fraction. Because that's what it is. Fractions and decimals are really different notations for the same thing. They are 2 different ways to look at part of a whole. So the whole number part is still going to be a whole number part. The decimal part is going to become a fraction, and we write it as a fraction over the place value that it's in. Okay, just make sure that the fraction is in simplest form. So we'll see that happen in just a few minutes. For instance, if we have 51 hundredths here, then as a fraction, 51 has to go over 100. Okay, and just as a general rule, if we have 2 numbers after the decimal here, we're going to have 2 zeros in the bottom of our fraction. Okay, so it's kind of a good thing to keep in mind. All right, similarly here, except now we have a whole number part of 5, so that's going to be our whole number part here. And then the 7 is in the tenths place of the decimal, so this will be 5 with 7 tenths for the fraction part. And again, 1 number after the decimal, 1 0 in the bottom of that fraction. Okay, or here, this is going to be 14 as the whole number part, and then 97 is in the hundredths place, so it's 97 hundredths. 2 numbers after the decimal, 2 zeros in the bottom of the fraction. Okay, or here, 23.5 is 23 with the whole number part, and then 5 is in the tenths place of the fraction. 1 number after the decimal, 1 0 in the denominator. Now, if you'll notice, 5 tenths is not in its simplest form. 5 is reducible by 5, and so is 10. So we're going to reduce the fraction part here and make this 23 and 1/2 when it's all reduced. Okay? Or here, we have no whole number part, so we don't have to worry about that. This is 125 in the thousandths place. So 1 2 3, 1 2 3. And this one is definitely going to reduce because I know that 25 goes into both of these numbers. So if I divide here by 25 and divide here by 25, what are we going to get? So 25 is going to go into 125. Think about how many quarters you have in $1.25, right? That's going to be 5 quarters. So you're going to get 5 there. How many quarters would we have in $10 there? 4 times 10. It's going to be, yeah, I don't trust myself. So let's go to the calculator just to make sure. 125 divided by 25 is 5. And let's go 1,000 divided by 25 is 40. Yep, okay, I was on target there. Now that I'm looking at this, I can see that 40 and 5 have a common factor as well. So I'm going to reduce one more time. I can see 5 goes in here, and it goes in here. That's going to make my final simplest form 1/8. So 1/8 is going to be our final there. Okay, sometimes it takes a couple rounds of reducing. All right, let's try this one more time. This is going to be 1 as our whole number part, and then 12 hundredths. So 12 out of 100. Again, 1 2, 1 2. And 12 hundredths, reducible. These are both going to have a common factor of, I know, 4. So let me see if that's going to be good enough. That's going to leave me 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. 100 divided by 4 is 25, and that's going to be that because no more common factors there. So 1 3/25 is our simplest form. All right. Now writing fractions as decimals. This is what I meant to put I don't know. This is when I needed to put that here. We're going to practice writing a couple fractions as decimals. This is when the denominator is a power of 10. And when that denominator is a power of 10, meaning it's 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 1 with a certain number of zeros, we're just going to reverse the process that we looked at a second ago. So 8 tenths I know is going to be 0.8. That's how we have 8 in the tenths place. But if I have 1 0 here, that means I should have 1 digit after my decimal. Okay? Or here, for example, with 87 tenths. I know this is going to be 8.7 because I have 1 0, that's just one number after my decimal. So you're going to take the top of your fraction and just move your decimal to where it needs to be. Okay? So again, an example here. The top of my fraction is 18, so I'm going to have 18 here. If I have 3 zeros in the bottom of my fraction, that means I need to have 3 numbers after the decimal. And I don't want to change the value of the 18, so the 0 has to go before it. Or again, that's 18 thousandths, so the 18 needs to be in the thousandths place. Okay? Or here I have 507 on the top of my fraction. If I have 2 zeros in the bottom of my fraction, 2 zeros in the denominator, I need to have 2 numbers after my decimal. So 5.07 is going to be the decimal form of that number. Okay? Now you can also use division, but we haven't talked about how exactly to do some of that yet, so that was just supposed to be an intro. We'll see more of that as we progress through the unit. I think you have enough, though, to get started on your practice. As always, though, if you need some extra help, then please reach out. All right, guys, take care.